welcome back to Call the Damn Leads, the show by sales professionals for sales professionals. I'm your host, Drew B. Wilson. With more than 2 decades in sales, I've seen it, been through it, heard about it. Now I'm bringing it to you, my favorite people in the world, the sales community, because this is the greatest job on earth. Doesn't matter where you come from, what background, what personality type, you can create an amazing life in sales. And today's guest is no stranger to that journey. He's also someone I had the pleasure of appearing on his show. He's a fellow podcast host. I'd like to welcome Mr. Marc Schmidt. Hello.
Thank you, Drewby.
Thank you for being here, Marc. I'm excited to have you, man. I know when I was on your show, we had a ton of fun together. So I'm excited to jump in, man. I want to hear your sales story.
My sales story. Well, let me just say that my sales story, just going back, not going to try to tell my whole life story, but I've never really actually viewed myself as being like the world's best salesperson. However, I feel like there are many ways to sell yourself, and I feel as though my strong suit as far as selling myself, frankly, is just by me being myself and telling my story. There's a lot of genuinity. Is that even a word? I'm very genuine. So I think that's really kind of like my strong suit. I know a lot of people can kind of like turn on a different personality when they're selling, and it's still authentically them, but it's just like they're playing a role. My role is just being myself.
You know, and one of the things that I really admire about you is you've had to overcome some struggles in your life, some things that the regular, most salespeople never have to think about. You were born with a cleft palate, if I understand correctly.
Cleft lip and palate.
Ooh, so you've had some challenges to overcome. And, you know, when it comes to sales and selling yourself, the ability to speak, I mean, that's a big part of it. So kind of talk us through, you know, as you were growing up and kind of working through this struggle, like what were some of the things that you did to fight through that mindset? Because I know mindset's a big part of really being comfortable and confident getting out there and selling yourself. And, you know, I know you're a business owner now. So what was that like?
Very difficult. I think the attitude that I always try to have and still have, but I think I've kind of like scaled it down a bit, is to try to prove myself. And I think that keeps me motivated because I don't really know what people out in the world actually see when they see me, when they hear me, but I do know that my experience is different from a lot of other people, and that, again, that's kind of like a loaded answer, because any person listening could probably say that, but I think my journey has been especially different, so I try to come at everything with like, okay, I need to put my best foot forward and, you know, just enunciate and speak up, and just as far as like being heard, do all the things I was taught growing up as far as how to communicate, and just prove to people that if they do have any doubts about me, that they will still be squashed or soon be squashed, hopefully by my intelligence or by whatever I have to say or whatever I have to offer.
Yeah, I love that. And, you know, here's the deal, Marc. I think 95% of the world, like their biggest fear is public speaking. And they weren't born with a cleft lip and a cleft palate. They're just genuinely afraid to get up in front of people and talk to someone. And so, you know, for you to have overcome that challenge and then to start a podcast and literally make public speaking part of your whole persona and your career, you know, what was it that inspired you to start your podcast and really go down this path?
So what inspired me was I left my job of 10 years in, oh my God, that was 2016 already. And yeah, a long time ago now. I feel like I've been telling this story for a long time, but I felt very like unfulfilled. I was in management where I was, and I went from that to freelancing, doing operations. So I wanted to find something that fulfilled me. And when I started going to LinkedIn local events in the Baltimore area, I got inspired by the entrepreneurs and the speakers who I saw and met. And they were actually, some of them telling me, hey, have you ever thought about making a podcast or making content? And I said, as a matter of fact, I never have considered doing it, but I took their feedback seriously. I started working on it and just posting content to LinkedIn, got great feedback from people, connected with people through the content, through the relationships I developed, and my confidence just grew. And I said, you know what? Maybe this is something that I can do, because I work in the television industry, but I always stayed behind the line. Like, I do very thankless, like, technical work, like stuff that never gets in the credits or anything like that. So you'll never see my name on anything that I actually work on in my day-to-day job. So that's just kind of where I thought I belong. You know, nobody wants to hear me, nobody wants to see me, but my confidence built up enough to give the podcasting a try. And now, 5 years later, here we are. I just did my first public speaking gig ever. On Drew's awesome podcast. And yeah, I'm just, everything's just growing. Business is growing, confidence is growing. And without rambling on too much longer, that's pretty much where we're at.
Yeah, I love that story because it really opens up the idea that, if you're not happy where you are, if you're not feeling fulfilled, you can go and create new opportunities for yourself. You can reinvent yourself. You can get out of your comfort zone and go and try something new. And it's amazing to me to hear the stories of folks like yourself, Mark, that were like, you know what? I just decided to go for it. Because at the end of the day, there's so many people that just they'll stay stuck in their comfort zone. They're literally like fight and claw and scratch to not leave it. And even with everything that you've dealt with in your life, you were still willing to take that chance on yourself. And I think that's the coolest part about entrepreneurship. And so, like when you made that decision and you had others who were, let's just say, reasonably more successful than you at the time telling you, hey, you should do this, like, what did that do for you? Like, how did that make you feel?
It made me feel really, really good, and it injected much needed confidence in myself, because I didn't really know exactly how I was going to find that fulfillment and fill that hole that was in my heart, my soul, wherever that hole was. I didn't know how to fill it. And I'm very much a person who, lives their life to the beat of their own drum. And I've gotten used to that. So I'm not necessarily somebody who is going to knock on people's doors a lot to look for support or anything like that, or encouragement. So when people were coming up to me and encouraging me without me even asking, I mean, I guess anybody can do that for anybody, but it meant a lot to me. And it just kind of snowballed from there. And it's amazing. And I say this a lot. It's amazing what a little support can do, even for somebody like me who's very independent and resourceful. It goes a long way, and it can really help to give you that push that you need to build yourself up.
You know what? And you said something there that I absolutely love, and I want to encourage the listener to think about. Anyone can go and show support for someone else, and they can do it in the smallest ways. A little encouragement, a little kudos, a little like, heck yeah, you should do that. You never know when that one small comment or that smile or that quick little like, you don't even think too much about it. You don't realize what a big impact that can make on someone's life. And so, if you're listening to this day, I want you to think about one time, today, tomorrow, the next day, show someone some encouragement, show them a little love, give them some kind of kudos, and just remind them like, hey, you're freaking awesome and you're doing great things and you should keep it up, because you never know when that little encouragement is going to hit someone deep, deep in their heart and in their soul. And it's going to push them to take that next step, to really lean in on the thing that they've been afraid to do. And I think that's one of those things that I really love about your story, Marc, is that, you could have made every excuse in the book as to why you couldn't be a public speaker or have a podcast or do all of these things. And you didn't. You just showed up and you continued to put in the work. And I'd be curious, did you run into any failures when you got started with your podcast?
Oh, yeah. I definitely ran into some bumps in the road along the way. I know 2020 is when I started the podcast, and I didn't start because of the pandemic. I was actually planning to do it as early as 2019. It just took till 2020 to get it going. But between where I was working at the time, which was already mentally taxing, and then just everything else going on in the world, that definitely made things very hard. I actually didn't know at the time if I was going to continue on, but I kind of like regrouped and found some new resources to find guests, because a lot of the guests in the first season, many of them are people that I knew who were entrepreneurs. So getting guests that I actually didn't really know was a big next step for me. And there were some learning curves along the way. There were one or two, obviously I'm not going to name names or anything, but there were like at least one or two episodes that I had to pull because something happened where the communication either wasn't right or I didn't post at all because it just wound up being a really like not good interview, or maybe people were not showing up, or I had pre-interviews that didn't go right. There were a lot of lessons learned in like 2021, even 2022. And there were times where I just kind of questioned whether I should be doing it or could be doing it. But the passion was there. I dusted myself off and I kept going, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah, I love that. It's so, when you're interviewing others, you never know what you're going to get. It's kind of a mixed bag. And especially when you're getting started with a podcast, I know finding guests, you kind of reach out to, it's like sales. Who's your circle of influence? Who do you know? Friends, family, acquaintances, your barber, right? Like the people that you run into on a consistent basis. And you run through most of those relatively quickly. And then you start going, all right, well, how am I going to get out and meet more people, right? I don't want to just cold call at random and be like, hey, do you want to be on a podcast? Because that kind of can seem a little weird. However, creating a podcast can be an amazing way to build a relationship with people that you do want to potentially work with in the long term. It's a strategy I've taught some of our coaching clients in our crew. And shout out to Alex Sanfilippo, the founder of podmatch.com. Like, he is an awesome human being, first and foremost. But the Podmatch platform, that's where Marc and I originally met. I got an opportunity to be a guest on his show, which to me, part of that strategy was, hey, if I get on more shows, I can get my message in front of more people that might like what I have to say, and then maybe come and find me and want to do business with me. Like, it was amazing. And then I got a message from Mark the other day that was like, hey man, I'd love to be on your show. And I'm like, yes, of course I want to have you on the show. Because not only did we have an awesome interview when I was a guest for you, I knew you had an awesome story to tell. And that's the great thing about the Podmatch platform is it really allows you to connect with other like-minded, success-driven professionals who want to show up, create amazing content, and just genuinely enjoy podcasting as not just a hobby, but as a tool that you can use to really create something amazing. Because you never know when someone's going to listen to an episode and they're going to hear something that just clicks and it turns their mind over and makes them go like, all right, I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to start chasing down this dream. And so, what for you, like kind of what are your goals with the future of your business and the podcast and everything that you have going on?
At this point, my goal is to continue to, really right off the bat, kind of a lame answer, continue to grow. So I have started joining, podcasting networks, which is really big. And I know there are opportunities to monetize in some of these situations. So some of these things are like huge next steps for me. I would like to mentor some people who want to start a podcast. So that's kind of like a next step. I know there's still a lot of growth with my own show that I want to see, but I think I would love in the long term to help people who want to start a show, because one thing that I've learned, whether it's on, podcasting, whether it's even something like TikTok, where there's a lot of people who are like afraid to go live. They don't want to like face people in like a live setting, or just even making content. People don't want to hear their own voice. And that's why that could be the thing that's holding them back from creating a podcast, from doing whatever. And I want to help people to get over that a little bit, because I will sit here and say I'm not actually over hearing the sound of my voice. It still kind of like bothers me, but I've gotten better, and that has taken a lot of work. So I just want to help people to get over those mind blocks that are keeping them from doing some of these things. And I also want to keep speaking because you mentioned Alex. I spoke at Podcasting Made Simple, and that was just a couple weeks ago now. That was an amazing experience. I got to talk about imposter syndrome as a guest on podcasts, nonetheless, which is what I am today. So a lot more goes into imposter syndrome than just being a guest on a podcast, which hopefully I got across. But that's kind of what I want to do. I just want to help people.
Mark, it was almost like you were reading my mind, because I wanted to bring up imposter syndrome for a couple of reasons. One, I really think this is something a lot of professionals do fight with in their own lives. I know myself included. Listen, man, I've recorded hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of podcast episodes. I've been a guest on probably another couple hundred. I create content pretty much every day. I too still hate the sound of my voice. I still get annoyed hearing it. I think it's weird and awkward and like, I don't really sound like that, do I? And it's like, yeah, you do, bub, because you've been doing this for a long time. And so I don't know that that's something anyone ever gets over, but I wanted to touch on imposter syndrome because you mentioned, hey, I'd really love to help coach people and teach them on how to start their own podcast. And you realize that there's still more growth and opportunity within your own podcast that you want to see, but I would encourage you not to let that stop you. Here's why, because I love talking about imposter syndrome from the standpoint of, if you're feeling it, you got to remember that imposter is someone who's a fake, who's a fraud, who's not, actually who they say they are. But at the end of the day, you are a podcaster. You're an amazing podcaster. You've created an awesome show that has had some very, very powerful guests. myself included, biasly. And here's the thing that I remind people: if you're feeling imposter syndrome, it's it's actually coming from a place of integrity. It means that you care and that you would never want to show up in front of a room or another person and lead them down a path that wouldn't get them to the result that they're looking for. And so, what I would encourage you and the listener and anyone who's dealing with imposter syndrome to remember is that as long as you're not leading above the level that you're on, in terms of you're not trying to show someone how to do something that you've never done, or you're trying to say, you're not one of those guys out there that's like, oh, I'll show you how to make $1,000,000, but you've never actually made $1,000,000. As long as you're simply showing someone to get where you are from where they are, which is 2 to 3 to 4 or 5 steps back, there's no reason to feel like an imposter. You have an amazing show. You've got the process. You've got an awesome flow. You know what you're doing. And there are people out there in the world right now who don't know how to start a podcast, who have no idea how to find guests. And if you show them how to get to where you are as having a show, having a great flow, being able to communicate clearly with people that makes them feel like they're excited to be a part of it, you're going to be an amazing coach. You're going to do an amazing thing for people. And bro, you never know. You might coach someone to start a show that goes on to be one of the biggest in the world. And they do it because they believe in you and because they know that you have the skill set to help them get there. So I would love to see you explore that journey and really continue on with it, because I was a guest on your show. You did an amazing job. You've been an amazing guest today. And so just remember, imposter syndrome comes from a place of integrity. And if you're just trying to show someone how to do the things that you've done to the level you've done them on, you got nothing to worry about.
I really appreciate that. And one thing I want to say is you should not have imposter syndrome about your voice. You sound like a cool person when you talk. So, and I mean, you are a cool person in general, but you sound cool. So don't even worry about that. When I listen to people like you, I'm like, oh man, they're money in the bank. Like, so don't worry about that. I will also, you talk about coaching somebody to be like, maybe not literally to be, but maybe they themselves become a big podcaster down the road. Quick story, been spending a lot of time on TikTok and trying to build myself up there, which has been an interesting journey to say the least. That part is a story for another time, but there's one live creator who was having like very little traffic in their room, but I thought they were awesome. Like, great personality, very funny. Just, I never wanted to like leave their live room. And I kept telling them, don't give up. You have a great voice. You have great personality. Now, today, as of now, they get 50 to 100 people in their live compared to like 2, 3, maybe 5 or 6 if they were lucky. And I don't want to take too much of that credit because they did it themselves, but I do know that me sticking around and telling them like, hey, you're good. I know, and they even told me, that was definitely helpful. So there is a lot to say for being positive and for encouraging people and just going with your gut, because my gut told me this person's really good. They need my support.
You know what? And I love that. Thank you for sharing that story. There's 2 things I want to pull out of there. One, shout out to the early supporters. Shout out to all the people who are in our lives that are showing that love and supporting us early on in the journey. You don't understand how much that means to those of us who are content creators and coaches and all the things, because your belief early on is what really cements the foundation for us to know that what we're doing does matter. And the reason I say that is because there was a presenter, I forget his name off the top of my head, but he was doing a public speaking event and he was very popular. And this woman had come up and was asking the question. She's like, you get thousands and thousands of viewers on your content and millions of views. And, here I am, little old me, I might get 150 views on a really good video. And, it makes me want to quit. And the guy was like, listen, 1,000 views, 150 views, you got to think about it like this. If there was a bus crash in your town right now and 150 people died, it would be a national tragedy. It would be like all over the news. Don't worry about the total number. Focus on the content that you're delivering to those who show up today. Because out of that 150, if one of those people hears what you have to say and they go and they make a big difference in their life, they do something, they change, they take that excitement and that energy and they transfer it to the next person, you did exactly what you showed up to do on that live video, on that piece of content. So like if you're listening to this today and you are an early content creator, don't worry about the fact that there are people that are getting millions and millions of views on their channels or their shows. Focus on the fact that you've got at least one person who's continuously showing up and supporting you, and realize that the more you lean in and show up for them, eventually that energy is going to snowball and you're going to see more and more and more. But you cannot quit. That is the biggest piece. You have to keep going. I can say without a doubt, when I first started my show many, many years ago, the first podcast I did, Crushing the Day, I would get 3 to 5 listeners on average. And then it would slowly grow and slowly grow and slowly grow. And, now if I put out an episode, I might get 150 to 200 people that listen to it in the first 24 hours. And that's not millions, that's not thousands. But I know that the people who are listening, they're my people. They're my tribe. They're my core audience that just loves what I'm putting out, and they're sharing it with their friends and they're telling people about it. And then when I get on a phone call with people that I'm chatting to because they bought some of our products from the store or whatever, they're telling me, hey man, I love listening to your podcast. And that's who we do it for. And so don't ever forget that, whether you've got 3 people or 3,000, you're doing something that's making an impact on the world. And Marc, honestly, bro, we could probably sit here and nerd out on this stuff all day long because you're a pleasure to chat with. And I certainly enjoy our conversations, and I'm hoping that we get to have more in the future. But how do people come find you? How do they come follow your podcast, listen to some of the other awesome guests that they had on there? What's the best way to do that?
Best way to do it, so I'm on the C-Suite Network. That's a new development that I'm a part of. C-Suite Radio. They're calling me a C-Suite Radio headliner. So maybe not quite yet, but maybe by the time this episode comes out or a little later, not that I know your release schedule, but you will see me on there. Really, that also equals you can find me pretty much everywhere that you can find podcasts, Apple, Spotify, etc. I'm also in the Podmatch podcast network. If you're looking for other podcasts, I almost said other great podcasts, even though I like to think mine is pretty great. There are my podcast plus many great ones there as well that you can discover. And yeah, just anywhere, just remember my name is spelled M-A-R-C, so it's Mark my words, M-A-R-C, and you can, you see my face, you come to the right place.
Well, Marc, I am truly grateful for your time. I'm super excited to watch your growth and continued journey. It's always a pleasure getting to chat with you. Like I said, I know you've got an awesome show. I highly encourage the listeners today to go check it out, find you, follow you. You're doing great things, and I know we're going to look up in a couple of years from now, and you're going to be on major stages doing amazing things. So keep up the great work, man. Thank you for being here. And as always, if you guys enjoyed the show today, not only should you go follow Marc and listen to the Mark My Words podcast, you should share this episode specifically on social media. Tag the two of us. Let the world know that you enjoyed it, that you got something of value out of it. Send it to somebody who you know that's struggling with imposter syndrome or that's afraid to start sharing their show and creating content. This has been an absolute masterclass on overcoming no matter what you've dealt with in your life, you can create amazing content, and we encourage you to do so. We will be your early supporters. Tell us about it. Send us your show notes. Send us everything. Let us know, because we'd love to help you on your journey. And as always, if you're a sales professional, entrepreneur, small business owner with a story of your own and you want to share it, I'd love to have you on the show. Head over to callthedamnleads.com/podcast. Send us your details. Let us know what's up. Schedule a time for us to chat, and we will get your story out there so that you can keep crushing the day and doing amazing things, just like my friend Mark. We'll see you guys on the next one. Go call the damn leads.
Thank you for having me.